can do it. Hello, hello. Thank you. Yes, I do. Welcome to Brown Bag Lunch today. I think today is going to be called an experiment. Okay, lots of moving parts and lots of things have changed and lots going on. And I just want to say welcome to everybody. Thank you for coming. Dixie gave me cards to hand out. I have a flat tire on my car, so I couldn't go over and get the cards. And I forgot to ask her. So I don't have the cards to pass around because they're at the other building. It's not easy to change buildings, we figured out. One of the problems that we're having is seating. And I know a lot of people have said, I can't see. Can we make it in a semicircle? Well, these tables don't bend very well, so I don't quite know how to do that. So if anybody has ideas on how we can arrange things better so people can see better, Karen and Mary are also with the cameras trying to film the programs but not be in the line of vision, so they're blocking your vision. So experiments are going on, so just bear with us, okay? So I just have a couple announcements to give you before we start. First of all, I want to tell you about the fair parade. Hope everybody remembers that Tuesday, and I think it's the 28th, is the fair parade. And it's going to be wonderful this year, partly because we're going to have our muster on the Maquoketa float in the parade. It's awesome. They've made a cannon and it shoots confetti, red, white, and blue, or it shoots smoke. And so when you watch the fair parade, watch for our Historical Society muster on the Maquoketa cannon because it'll be part of it. But the fairgrounds asked me to also make another announcement. Maybe you have not heard, but the city has decided to have fireworks after the fair parade on the fairgrounds. And they've not done that before, or at least not in a very long time. So it's an attempt to maybe bring fireworks back to Maquoketa because we've kind of been lacking in that. So at least for the 250th, fireworks right after the parade. So just make a note of that, okay? We're going to pass our volunteer calendar for the parade, or for the building to volunteer during the fair so that we can be open for free for anybody who wants to come through the museum as kind of our giving back to the fair or to the fairgrounds. But we can't do that unless we have people willing to just be here. And so many of you have signed up. We're asking for a few more. If you can sign up, Kara has the passes today. So she will give you a pass. You get in free for the day that you've signed up. And so please come and help us keep the museum open. If we don't have a volunteer or 2 or 3 volunteers, then we just won't be able to be open that day. And that's kind of sad because we would like people around the county and from away who maybe have never been here to see the wonderful things that we do have in our museum. So we're going to be passing that around. We put it in pencil because there's always changes. So, all right. Okay, I was supposed to make an announcement about North Bend School. That is also over in the other building on my desk because I couldn't get there this morning. I know that on I think it's August 4th, they're having, Jerry, do you know?
The bake sale? I think it's Saturday. I think it's the 1st.
Okay, maybe Saturday, August 1st, North Bend is having a bake sale, open house kind of thing.
Brought Stan fundraiser for their ramp to replace the ramp at the North Bend School.
Okay, fundraiser for the North Bend School to replace their ramp. So, Saturday, August 1st. Okay, and
in the morning.
It's sometime in the morning. So go have lunch and support their efforts. All right, so that's, I think, it for announcements. So today, we're going to be talking about the Maquoketa, okay? So we're starting out with the father of Maquoketa, J. Goodnow. J. Goodnow was not an educated man. He had very little education, actually, but more than anybody in our history, he appreciated and understood what education does for us. J. Goodnow was the one behind getting good education to come to Maquoketa. We had wonderful education in Maquoketa in our early years. You remember that we had a Nobel Prize winner that graduated from Maquoketa High School in 1888, sorry, Robert Millikan. That's a wonderful thing for a small town like Maquoketa to have a Nobel Prize winner. We also had Matthew Luckish, who graduated in 1899 from Maquoketa High School. He was called the father of seeing, and he was one of the greatest physicists of his time working in electronics. He helped with other people working around the world at the same time to invent fluorescent lights. He was a brilliant, brilliant man. We have wonderful education in Maquoketa back in the day, and a lot of it was due to J.E. Goodnow and his forward thinking. So J.E. Goodnow started our school system. Are you my little helper? Are you? Got her. Sorry. Okay, so everybody probably recognizes this photograph. On the historic corner of Main and Platt Street, J. Goodnow built his cabin, and that's where everybody stopped, trekking through, heading to the west. They stopped at J. Goodnow's cabin. This is a cabin that was actually on the corner of Pleasant Street and Main Street. He built it to be a blacksmith shop, but the first school in Maquoketa was in this building. It was used for a blacksmith shop, yes, but it was used for a school, a polling booth. It was used for church from time to time. That little cabin that was where Glovic Park is now was one of the most important buildings that we had for a while. So that's J.E. Goodnow. You better pay attention. I know. Okay, so this is the best picture that we have of the first actual public school that was in Maquoketa. It was in 1850, and it was a one-story brick schoolhouse that was built just across the street in north and west of where the old Fourth Ward School was. Okay, it was on land that was donated by John Shaw, and while that was our first public school, there were still private schools that were functioning and doing well, and one of those was the Academy. Okay. The Academy was on land that was donated by J. Goodnow, 5 acres of land. It's called Academy Hill, and just so you can put it in place, that's where the Maquoketa Middle School is today. Okay, so our first public school, it was replaced later by a 3-story building. Okay, so the school was replaced by this 3-story building, right? This was built by private people, a lot of them. But as you look at this, it looks wonderful in the drawing, and you can see how long it was there. It was poorly planned, it was poorly constructed, and pretty soon it was considered to be unsafe. And then by the end of its time, it was considered to be way too big. So in a census of school children in 1856, in the Maquoketa area, there were only 85 kids. And of those 85 kids, some of them were too young to even go to school. So there were not enough children to fill this big building. And the unused upper levels became filled with dust and dirt and rubbish, and so it just kind of went downhill. Actually, it was built in 51 to 52. In May of 1958, the 3 sub-districts in Maquoketa were consolidated into an independent district, and the school board then purchased this building for just a very small part of its value. So this second academy that started out as a private school all of a sudden became a public school. And it opened December 1st of 1860. And it's just kind of interesting to note that all of the expenses and salaries that they needed to have to run this school could have been paid if even half of the registered students had actually attended school. But not many people could get their kids to school back then. Kids had to work back then. There were a lot of reasons, and education just maybe wasn't a high priority back then because they were trying to survive. But of 439 registered school children to attend this building, only 208 attended. And the daily average attendance was 133 kids. So teachers were paid in proportion to attendance back then. And so you can see a lack of funds causing a big problem because kids just didn't go to school. So this is what was called the Third Academy. By 1876, the other building was deemed to be unsafe, too small, and it was torn down. And a bond issue passed, because now it's a public school, right? They allocated $18,000 for a new high school. In 1876, this third building was erected. This was the third building that was in that same place on Academy Hill, and the sign over the door read High School, 1876. Soon the building was being called the Academy anyway, because it stood on Academy Hill, so that name has just stuck through the years. It's still known as Academy Hill. So there's a picture maybe you recognize better. So this is the third school, and you can see the Industrial Arts Building to the back in this photograph. So I'm thinking that many of you remember the Industrial Arts Building. I remember the Industrial Arts Building because somebody put my little Crosley in the middle of the little glass hall that connected the two buildings and turned it sideways and nobody could get through. And the bell rang, and you know, and so of course my father was called and I got in a lot of trouble even though I didn't do it. So I remember that building really, really well. But everything was going well. The people in the community were really proud of the school, and children were deemed to be well educated at that point and just proud of its beautiful school. We're guessing that this photo was between 1910 and 1920 because of the Industrial Art Building, etc. So all was well, so we thought. But then, December 29th of 1921, the temperature was 0. And there was the fire, a huge, disastrous fire. It was thought to be caused by combustion taking place in the coal bins in the basement. The records were spared though, because they had been put in a steel cabinet that they had purchased 2 years earlier. So they still have the records because they weren't destroyed. This strongbox was kept on the upper floor, and the floor gave way. And show the next one. The floor gave way. As you can see, there's nothing in the middle. And this steel cabinet fell 50 feet into the basement. And then we always talk about, and you can't really see it from here, we always talk about the bell that was in the bell tower. Remember that wonderful bell? And the kids in the city supposedly loved that bell. They would hear it ring, they would go to school. But the bell fell from the bell tower way up, all the way through and down into the basement. Well, something extraordinary happened. It would never happen today. They waited for the ashes to cool, thank goodness. And then the children were allowed to go in that basement, climb around the bricks, and hunt for this bell because it was under the rubble and they couldn't find it. So we're told that kids searched for that bell for 3 weeks. And they could not find it. There was no sign of it. You know, they had tried to track the trajectory of how they thought it would have fallen, where it might have been. They could not locate it anywhere. So they kind of gave up the search and thought, okay, it's going to show up sooner or later. And as the workmen cleaned out the debris and the rubble and the bricks and all of the things that were down there, they finally found the bell. It was under 12 to 15 feet of brick and debris. It was rescued, it was beloved, it was rescued, it was cleaned, and it was put in a special case that they made for the new high school. And I'm told that it was at the high school, up by the chemistry department in the hallway for many years. And then later, it was given to the Jackson County Historical Society. So when I came, there was a radio program. Was it in the library?
It was in the library when I
Okay, it was in the library in this special case that was made for it. Thank you. Well, when I came, I was listening to KMAQ one morning, the call-in show. Somebody called in and wanted to know whatever happened to the old school bell. And somebody else called in and said it's at the Historical Society. And I said, no, it's not. Well, we had several old bells that the curator before me had put on black wheels, and it was just among the other bells. No special signage, anything, noting what that bell was. Finally figured out that that was the bell that fell all the way, and so it was here. And we put it back in the case because someone had used this beautiful glass case, which is right behind the flag right there. This, you can see the corner of the glass case. That is the bell we're talking about that was rescued from all the rubble. An interesting thing about the bell is that it has a crack that looks a little bit like the Liberty Bell, and it has a lot of dents in it. And so we're told that for that hard casting to dent, it would have had to have been red hot, or it would not have dented. And there's dents. You can see the dents. So they know how hot that bell got down into all of that rubble. So anyway, we have the bell. So please, before you go, please look at our wonderful bell. We took all the branches and the birds that someone had put in the case out. We put the bell back in. Richard Ganser, we miss Richard Ganser. That bell weighs many hundreds of pounds, and he put that bell in that case all by himself. And somewhere we have a video, he raised it just inch by inch. Ted Mays would know how to do that. He just raised it inch by inch by inch until he got it. It was kind of teetering until he got it up there, and he slid it. And so please take a look. We'll always remember how he did that. Anyway, there we have a picture of Superintendent Moyle, and his name was B.S. Moyle. That his initials, B.S. Moyle. He was superintendent of the school, and the same afternoon, well, the fire, I guess I should say, the fire took place during Christmas break in January. It was December 29th, sorry. And of course, all the kids were on Christmas break. And so there was no school. It happened in the night. Then, the next day, he was on the phone with all kinds of people already arranging to have the new school built in its place. He was such a fantastic man, such an organizer, such a planner, so dedicated that when it was time for the kids to go back to school after Christmas break, there was not one day of school missed. He had arranged for class space in Rice Hall, in every place there was, probably the library, every place there was to hold a classroom was used, and not one student missed a day of school after this tragic fire. So I think that says a lot. He got materials, classroom materials, and while the new school was being built, school went on. The loss was placed at $80,000 for the school. They were well insured, so they had the money to reconstruct. The contract went to A. Ebeling, and maybe you know that name. He had just, at that time, just finished building the American Savings Bank. That's where Make a Splash is now, and it was such a beautiful bank at one time. So that's the man who got the contract to build the new high school. So I just think that's an amazing story. It's also amazing that the Manual Arts building that you saw in the back, and many of you remember, that didn't burn. It was fine, and it was saved, and it was used for many, many years after that. But sparks from the fire did ignite shingles on houses on Judson Street, just to the south. A lot of those houses, the roofs caught on fire. And they said that 45 years of memories were gone. But we don't think all the memories were gone, because we have awesome books like the little Maquoketans that are sprinkled around the table in front of you that you certainly may take a look at and that we're going to talk about today. Okay, so we have the new high school. Okay, well, that's part of the new high school. The school, as I said, got rebuilt. We now know it as the Maquoketa Middle School, but over the years, this building was so much more. There was a point where at the same time, this building, can you go one up maybe? I've got, it's my fault. Oops, go one back. Okay, maybe I didn't put it in there, sorry. We'll see a picture of it soon, sorry. So it's, at one time, this building simultaneously held elementary grades 1 through 6 for the 3rd ward, okay? Because remember, we had the other ward schools, 1st, 2nd, and this was 3rd, and then the 4th ward. It held 7th and 8th graders because it was a junior high school at the same time. It was a 4-year high school at the same time, and part of that time, and to me its most glorious days, it housed the Maquoketa Junior College, which was on the top floor. And here you see the door that they went in. I assume that that's the door that they all went in for the junior college. That is still there. You can still see it. It's on the west side of the building, right? On the west side of the building, and that's still there. Okay, so for 16 years, Maquoketa had a wonderful junior college. And most of the information that we have about the junior college came from its probably proudest alumni, who was Irving Pennyroth. He gave many programs here about the junior college. He just absolutely loved it. And he had a wonderful way of putting things in perspective. And one thing that Irving Pennyroth said was that 1927, when the school was opened, when junior college was open, 1927 was a very good year. In addition to the beginning of the junior college in Maquoketa, there were 3 events of national stature that year. On May 21st, Charles Lindbergh became the first pilot to solo across the Atlantic Ocean from New York to Paris. That same year that the junior college opened, Babe Ruth hit 60 home runs in professional baseball. And he did it while playing in 154 games, and his record stood for more than 70 years. And then didn't they change some rules in order to move on, I think. The 3rd event that he talked about was when the Ford Model A went on display on December 1st in New York's Waldorf Hotel, and it had many improvements over the earlier model, the Model T. So that was Irvin's way of letting everybody know just when this junior college started. 16 wonderful years it was there. And just a little bit more about that. This junior college that we should be so proud of was one of 30 junior colleges in all of Iowa. It was fully accredited. It offered degrees in liberal arts, pre-engineering, teacher training, and commerce. The tuition was $12 a month. Wow. The faculty was shared with high school faculty, only the college instructors were required to have master's degrees. During the existence of the college, there were 3 deans. The first was B.S. Moyle from 1927 to 1934. The next, 1934 to 1937, was W.C. Harding. And from 1937 until it closed in 1943, the dean was E.L. Miller. But it was just such a wonderful thing for Maquoketa to have. Came to an end because of the war, right? All of the men went overseas. There was nobody to go to college. All of that age of people were either fighting in the war or they were a nurse helping with the war, something for the war effort, and so the college was closed. I think at the beginning there were hopes to reopen it, but then it just never happened, and that was a great loss. So $12 a month for tuition, that was pretty good. Okay, so during all of those years, we had some wonderful things that kept our memories, maybe, right? In 1940, there was the siren. Maybe I don't have okay. So in 1940, there was a siren. I don't even have it up here. The siren was the yearbook for the junior college, okay? During from 1876 on, early days, there were numerous publications, all by the students, all recording their memories and the fun things that they had, the times that they had, and the wonderful things that they did, of course with the advice of faculty. But the siren was the junior college yearbook, and we have a lot of them back here in our room, but we don't have all of them So if any of you have any that you would care to donate, we would be happy to have them. Junior college began in 1927, it closed in 1943, 16 wonderful years like we said. And this yearbook, the Siren, was published every single year until 1940, when because the war was starting they couldn't do it anymore. 1941, 42, and 43, there were a few pages of the Siren included in the Exodus, which was, of course, the high school yearbook. And according to Ergen, the 1940 Siren was the Cadillac of them all, and he always talked about that. And we do have some of those, and they're wonderful. He liked them because it listed every graduating class from the college, and so it is an important thing to have. Cadillac issue. And he also noted, and this is true, that it contained a lot of advertising. And when you look at advertising back that far, it's amazing the things that we had here, that were sold here, that were made here, that were done here. So it's an interesting part of it. Okay, and we have the 1912 talk. And we don't have many of these. And I don't know for sure how long these were even printed. This one says it's number 1. I don't know whether it's number 1 for the year of 1912 or it's just the first one ever. But it was printed by the Sentinel Press. So this is the era of our Dr. Frank, Dr. Owen Frank, that kind of puts things in perspective. There's many pictures of Dr. Frank in here. He was just Mr. Maquoketa High School at that time, doing all the wonderful things that he did. And it was also interesting that the editor-in-chief of this talk was a man by the name of Francis Webster. And probably you don't remember, we had a whole program about him at one time. He graduated from Maquoketa High School. He went to Des Moines and he studied to be a cartoonist under Dane Darling. I'm sure you remember that name. He enlisted in the Army so that he could go overseas and be a battlefield cartoonist during World War I. Instead of just going as a cartoonist where he would have to be on the sidelines, he actually enlisted so that he could be right out there with the men. And he sent back all his cartoons, which kind of told the story of the war. They'd be in all of the papers. And we did find out that he actually was killed on the poppy fields of France. He died doing this. But his friends worked together and they smuggled back into the United States all of his work, his materials, his cartoons, his everything. And there's a huge display of them at the Gold Star Museum outside of Des Moines. The only military museum in Iowa, I believe. But he graduated from Maquoketa High School and he was awesome. And then of course everybody knows the Exodus. We had the Exodus, and that was the annual yearbook for the high school for many of my years at least, and I'm sure a lot of yours. But these are all little treasure troves of history. So all of our history didn't burn. We have some left, and we have to remember that we have these things. Okay, today we're going to talk about the Maquoketan, and we're going to talk about the Maquoketan kind of because Blaine Bach collected everything, as you know. Those of you who knew Blaine Bach, he collected everything, and Mary brought us a huge collection of Blaine Bach's Maquoketans. So it kind of brought it to the forefront. So that was the catalyst of what we're kind of talking about today. It was published weekly. It was 4 pages usually, published weekly by the students of Maquoketa High School. Of course, they always had a faculty advisor. And so we had some that had been donated, a collection here, a collection there, but they were small and incomplete. Kathy Bailey, thank goodness, has gone through all of these, organized these, and instead of 4 collections of hit and miss, we now have a consecutive order of all of these Maquoketans. Do we have everyone, Kathy, do you think?
We're missing one in that time period I've done so far.
Wow, okay. So bring us your Maquoketans if you have them. It may be that one. And then when she gets done and gets them all done, Eric Peterson is digitizing them, and he's made an awesome database so we can search things, which Gunner's going to show us in a little bit. Yes. Okay. So the next one. Oh, maybe that's it. No, that was it. Back one. Sorry. Ah, okay. So we think that this is the first issue, the very first one, maybe. And I just thought it was wonderful because, as you can see, well, it's hard to see, but the picture in the middle, that is Mr. Moyle, Superintendent Moyle. And then the little thing, in appreciation, which I put over there for you, in appreciation of the interest he takes in us, and as proof of the interest we take in him, we, the staff of the 1925-26, dedicate the first issue of the Maquoketa High School Maquoketa to our pal and our superintendent, Mr. Moyle. Is that not wonderful? Yeah. Isn't that the kind of thing we wish we saw in our schools across the nation today? I just think that was a wonderful and really touching thing. And I bet that that's one thing that he treasures the rest of his life. Okay. The other thing that they did that was funny, they wanted to be sure that everybody realized how they were funding this paper. The very first issue, they were proud it had absolutely no advertising. But then they said, in subsequent issues, we will give businesses the opportunity to participate. And so you can see there all of their things. And I thought that was kind of clever thinking from a bunch of students that were trying to get the businessmen of the town to support what they were doing and donate money and that thing. But it was just, you know, we're not asking for, we want to play fair, we don't want charity, but you know, we would like to help you, so donate to us. All the kids will come and buy your products if you just sponsor us by, you know, getting this printed. So it was just, I just thought it was kind of neat. Yep. So they also had subscriptions. You could subscribe, so you got your copy. And they found a neat way to do that. I'm just giving these students lots of credit because they thought this out really well. At one point, and I'm sure it changed from time to time, it cost 50 cents a semester to subscribe to your copy of the Maquoketa. And they did it as sort of a competition between classes. Freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. Each class had 2 home rooms. And each home room had a supervisor, right? And the president of the class. And they were the ones that were called upon to get 100% membership from their group, from their study hall, from their class. So, you know, the pressure was on. The chairman of the homerooms and the presidents of the class had to it was kind of like the whip in Congress. They had to get their constituents into shape. And if they didn't have 100% participation, 100% subscriptions, then that was a black mark against the class. So they used all these little techniques to get people to subscribe. So they had the money to print this because they had to pay for this. So they actually paid to have it printed. It wasn't printed at the school like probably we would do today. And they got bids from printing companies and they wrote contracts. Grants Printing was one company that bid a lot. That was a big printing firm in Maquoketa back in the day. And of course the Jackson Sentinel could print them. And so, you know, they had to do a lot of thinking to put this Maquoketa together. And there were just lots of interesting things. So I put some out there for you to look at if you want. If you come up with any interesting stories, we can talk about them in a bit. Some of the things that I found as we were going through, or maybe Kathy reminded me of, they had a lot of clubs in high school back then. And one was the Plus Ultra Club, which I thought was interesting. There's a group of kids that formed a club. They met in the community room of the First National Bank. And after a meeting there, they had a after their business meeting, they at one time had a convention of famous Romans. Okay? They dressed up, they made costumes. Famous Romans, someone was Caesar, Mark Antony, Cicero, Horace, and many, many others. And then in full costume, they each told something about their lives or what they had accomplished. What a neat way to learn. But that was the Plus Ultra Club. And they also published within these pages some really clever poems and prose. And it was just interesting. One I found that I liked, it was Education Up to Date by a student named Doolittle. And this is what he said in his poem. For some there seems a lot of joy in going to school or college and barely making a passing grade. They never master knowledge, but catch an idea here and there, and for the rest they do not care. For these it's quite the proper thing to bluff examination. They know the crooked ways around all the mental perspiration. One whispers slyly to his neighbor, I found a way to dodge your labor. They look upon the campus grind in manner most disdainful, and for the student making A's, they have regard that's painful. Whoever studies while in school is several different kinds of fool. Now, wouldn't it be better, parentheses, save much needless friction, to organize another school for those who want no diction, or studies in chemistry, Latin, or French? Encourage none to come who think, but only those who chatter. Prescribe a course in talk and clothes, for these are all that matter. And 'neath a flag that slowly ripples, write a large banner, the School for Mental Cripples. I just thought that was fun. These were really thinking kids, and I just thought that was neat. Okay, so we found lots of articles about students of the week. And there we have Bonnie Bullock and Nadine Bowling. Okay, so Bonnie Bullock, of course, married Don Maxey, right, history teacher, social studies teacher. Okay, and Nadine Bowling married Harold Lovett. But at some point, you know, they just said wonderful things about, there was a whole page, and I don't know whether I handed that one out or not, but with a picture of each of them, and they talked about them. So front and center were the two students of the week. They were interviewed. Bonnie Bullock talked about her love for swimming, basketball, and tennis, and that it was her secret dream to go to Bermuda. And I bet she made it, but I don't know that. And she was planning to go to Iowa State Teachers College. And then Nadine Lovett. It was noted that she was one of the shortest girls in her class. And she said that she didn't let her height bother her. She said the thing that she would remember forever was the honor of being chosen to be the queen attendant for the junior year. She liked writing short stories, sewing her own clothes. Her favorite actress was Grace Kelly, and her favorite actor was that crazy Jerry Lewis. And she was ready to go off to beauty school in Cedar Rapids. So that was our Nadine. Anyway, I was amazed by reading in one of these. I'd like to tell you I read all of them, and I would have liked to have read all of them. They're pretty interesting. But I was really amazed to learn that the Maquoketa High School did not have a central library until the fall of 1952. And this central library that they were going to open was going to take the place of individual classroom libraries. And it was needed, and the reason they did this, it was needed for accreditation to the North Central Association. And then the story added that, of course, it would be a great help to students who will now have access to better information. They would have world almanacs and Webster's biographical dictionaries and who's who, etc. Up until then, and then there would also be a small recreational library as well, and that would build through the years. And they would have 17 magazine, was it the 17 or 16 magazine, you know, that all the girls read back then? 17? 17? Okay. They would have magazines like that and just fun reading, and there would be no money spent on that, but that would be added as the time went. And that, you know, even though they had small classroom libraries, every classroom didn't have every reference source that they needed. So this main central library would be wonderful for them. They would not have an active librarian, and instead they would have student librarians, and with the help of study hall supervisors, they would assist the students in learning to use this. There were pictures, of course, of the cheerleaders. Look at that. Janet Riley, Nancy Stewart, Marlene Gleesick, and on and on. and that was fun. This was in volume 15, number 13, October 28th, 1952. And I need a better way to get my pictures. Okay. Okay. Anyway, in the article that went with this, it talks about the fact that they must have had tryouts, and they knew from the beginning that Betty Nairn and Nancy Stewart, they performed so beautifully that everyone knew that they would be selected to be cheerleaders. And it stated that Betty was a senior, and it listed her classes. But then in bold, after that, in bold print, it said, naturally, her main interest is Gib Marcusi. Though she was interested in white teens and rainbow girls. And then it listed Nancy Stewart's classes and says in bold print, and Jake Moore is her main interest, but she also has many secondary ones. So they're just awesome, fun things in these about people that you know or that you knew. So the next one is the basketball team, of course, and they made that, oh, that is wrestling, isn't it? Well, you know what? I must have replaced that picture because I looked at that and thought, okay, sorry. There was the wrestling, there was the basketball team. Of course, there were a lot of sports in these different issues, and you can see all the people that you knew. But in this particular one, the wrestlers were made the students of the week. So there was always students of the week in the Maquoketans, and it's fun to see who they were and what they did. So there was also interesting news from each class. The one I found the funniest of the ones that I saw, it was the homemaking girls in the freshman class. And they had been having pet bats sewing with them. Bats were flying around in the room in the school, and they would land somewhere near a girl. And the girls loved these bats, and they named them and everything else. And one day they even called Mr. Seidel to come in and catch one of their pets so that they could see it up close. And they loved these bats that were flying around in their sewing class. Anyway, so Ruth and Alice have some things that they brought about one of their grandmas. Would you? You can stay there if you think you can make everybody hear you. Or you can come up here where you know they'll hear you. Just don't trip over all my cords.
Well, we're going back early times, probably in that building that burned, is where our 1899. Our grandmother was a graduate in 1899. I have a picture of her graduation picture in 1899, and we have various programs of their I don't know if you knew Louise Bush. She was an active member of the Congregational Church in Maquoketa. And her children were Arnold Bush and Anita Sheepers, and Alice married Dennis Mans. And I'm Ruth Berchter. My mother was Louise's daughter also. And we have a picture of her 90th birthday here too, so you can see what she looked like at 90. And she's the only grandmother I really knew, so anyway, she was very important to me. We had some information about how much tuition cost in 1899. It was $1.12 for one semester and $1.50 for the second semester. The total year with all their supplies cost $8.67. And I have her report card.
That's right here.
Yeah. And this is also a report card. So I'm just so glad to have this information. So my grandmother went to that. And she was one of 7 children raised on a farm north of Lost Nation. And how she ended up in the Maquoketa school, we don't really know for sure, but she had to have stayed somewhere in Maquoketa.
Yeah, she wouldn't have traveled back and forth from the farm.
She was the youngest of 7 children. So, and her father died when she was only 3 years old too. So. Anyway, just very casual information about our grandmother. Do you have anything you want to add, Alice?
Oh, well, she graduated in the class of 1899, and Mr. Lookish was one of her classmates.
Yes.
And
I
I
list of her classmates here.
think Frank Megg was also a classmate. We've talked about him before. Winfield Tubbs was a classmate. Just some names that, you know. Bertha Harrington, Harrison Penrose, Hugo Stack. I don't know, that's some of the
Yeah.
notable people that
Yeah.
we would remember today.
Yeah. Anyway, glad to share information with you.
Thank you. Okay, so now that Kathy and Eric are doing all this wonderful work with these Maquoketans, working hard so we can make them available, Gunner's going to explain how that's going to work, and Eric can help him out.
Actually, no, I'm just going to send them out.
Okay.
I'm just going to send them after him if they have any questions.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to torture him a little bit. It's okay. He needs it. Alright, so basically, I'm just going to share with you guys a brief explanation about it. If you have any questions or anything like that, as I said, bother Eric. He loves the attention anyways. It's okay. Look at him. He's shaking his head to side, just so excited. But anyways, so basically, this is Brad Back Lunch with this topic. Eric and Kathy so kindly were able to scan those and make those digital. So the idea of this is that when you're able to come in looking for family members or friends that you knew or you know, and you knew that they went to those places, that you'd be able to come in and be able to gather information. So how it will work for in the meantime is that you'll come in and an employee or volunteer would be able to help you understand by reaching a folder in Google Drive. But eventually, over time, we should be able to let you individuals be able to access those things and be able to research on your own time. But as a matter of fact, right now, still figuring that part out. Eric, do you have any ideas on that? Anything that I'm missing here?
Your dad's working on it, so.
Well, yeah, my dad's working on that. I don't know where he's at. That's okay. I'll figure that out later. But yeah, so if you have any questions, again, ask Eric. Come on, Eric.
So the idea is that we're going to digitize these so that you can search the text in there. So you'll be able to, if you have a family member, you can type them in and you can get all the sources that their name appears in the whether it's in Maquoketa or one of the reference books in the library. So it'll be pretty comprehensive, so you can kind of get all the information about your relatives or about a topic once these get digitized.
Yes, good job, Eric. That was very good. I'm very proud of you.
That's basically what it is.
Okay. Well, yeah, this is like very early stage. I literally just found out about this morning, so I'm still learning a little bit about it. I was not told about this. I got sat down, told about these emails with this folder, and I'm like, oh, okay, and then just figured all of it out. So yeah, that's basically all I know so far, but progressively it'll get a lot easier. But we're still figuring that stuff out.
All right.
Yeah.
So, in a nutshell, what we're trying to do is get everything digitized and online in a way that everybody who's a member of the Historical Society will have a password. And you can use that password to access cemetery records, our photographs, Clinton Engine records, the Maquoketans, anything that, as we get things digitized, you'll be able to sit at home, use your password, and see these things. So that's what we're working on. Time will tell. Gunner's done an amazing job. He works with Notebook LM, his favorite. But he's learned to do amazing things with that through the use of AI. And he has put together several programs about our Spanish-American War canon. about its history, about its restoration, about the Jackson County volunteers that helped to repair it and restore it, and it's back here. And tonight we hope to put up some background and make it into a nicer exhibit. The history of the cannon, the history of the Spanish-American War, lots of different ways to look at it. So he's going to do a brown bag lunch one of these days as he's doing community service for his high school that he's going to be going to in Davenport. Assumption, sorry, I never say that right. So he's getting a head start over the summer. He'll be a freshman. So anyway, but this is what the Historical Society is working at. Kathy has worked so hard. Eric has worked so hard. Kara, everybody's working. I don't understand most of it, as you can tell. But it's going to be wonderful once we get it all done. So members of the Historical Society with their special password will be able to access all this wonderful information and photographs someday soon. Okay, thank you so much for coming. Don't forget, if you can sign up, if you can get a fair pass, if you can come help us out, that would be wonderful. So, anyway. Oh.
I got one question.
Please.
For rumors, this rumor I heard years ago that in the 1950s there was a wrestling coach who drove a Volkswagen to the junior high all the time. And the wrestlers liked him so well that they carried that Volkswagen clear to the third floor. So I don't know if they or not.
Well, it may be that the story has gotten twisted a little bit. Maybe there's two different ones, but I remember when I was in high school, my folks didn't have much money. And my folks took an old Crosley that looks very much like a Volkswagen, right? Little. My dad took that in on trade on a bill. And so then they made it a little car for me to drive. And it was fun. It was an awesome little car. But it had some shortcomings. If I drove down Main Street, one guy could come out and pick up the back and I couldn't go anywhere. And they were always doing little pranks, and the little pranks were fine until they involved my father, who was just kind of tired of these things happening. The worst thing that happened was, maybe the most notable, was this little car. I think probably 4 guys. You know, sometimes the only way back in the day that you could get out of the house, at least my house, was, oh Mom, I've got all this homework and I've got to go to the library and study. But of course all your friends were at the library, right? So you go to the library and study. So one night I was at the library and I had driven my little Crosley, and the librarian came over and she was hysterical, and she said, you have got to get your car off the steps of the library. And I'm like, what? So guys had carried my car up to, we just had the old look part of the library then, the Carnegie Library. They had carried my little car up the steps and put it in front of the door, crosswise. Nobody could get in, nobody could get out, and she wanted me to move it. So that was difficult. Luckily, my cousin Corky Wells, some of you will remember, Corky came along. He got some other guys and carried it back down. And so, I survived that one. The only thing that, and it was stuck in the old, between the main part of the school and the Industrial Arts Building. They put it in there one time and I couldn't get it out either. But the only bad thing I ever did that was wrong with that car was, how the little streets in the first ward and the second ward park, there's a diagonal sidewalk back in the day. Well, one time I had some friends in the car and we decided it would be fun to drive down that sidewalk. So as I was driving down that sidewalk, of course there was a policeman going by. So the policeman came over and then he went to City Hall. And my dad was on the city council at that time. He interrupted the city council meeting and called my dad out, and I lost my little car. But the little car was fun, but I don't know if there was another car, doing the same thing. This would have been in '59, something like that. Nadine.
Bill Loftus in 1956, the seniors or anybody, the guys, would take his little sports car, he had a little sports convertible, and they'd set it on the library steps. And they did that on a regular basis, just about.
I did not know that. Who was that?
Bill Loftus.
Bill Loftus. I didn't know that. Was that a little Volkswagen that maybe,
No,
Ralph?
he had a fancy little sports car.
Really? So I don't know which one Ralph is referring to.
That was a 50 well and 55, 56.
Okay, something like that. Lots of fun things happened at our high school. All the iterations of buildings that were on Academy Hill.
When I was in high school, I'm from Cedar Rapids.
You were in high school in Cedar Rapids?
Yes.
Okay.
And we had a library, and that was a place where you went, and there was always a band and dancing, so.
Okay.
You know, you just told your parents you were going to the library, they didn't know it was.
And they didn't know what was going on, huh? The library was an interesting place to go at night because there wasn't much else to do. All right. Any other stories before we go? Did you see anything in the Maquoketans that are laying out that maybe caught your attention? A little story? Anything? Dixie?
Well, I just noticed that in some of those stories, I don't know who would have written them or if they took them out of something that would have been, it didn't really say who had written them.
I know. And a lot of times you'll see in the Maquoketa, it used last names but not first names. Did you notice that in any of the things? But I don't know, but they're interesting little tidbits of history. And so they're pretty interesting to read. So we're excited to get them in a spot where everybody can, if you want, come and look at them. You'd be surprised how many strange nicknames people had, different things like that.
I read this one
Linda.
to Bruce before. It was about the test plots for the corn.
Oh, talk about that.
Because we're agricultural here.
Absolutely.
The agriculture department received the seed for 4 potato test plots of approximately 1/6 of an acre each. Each boy will plant 225 pounds of potatoes. The test plot will be tried by Ralph Greenwald, Cyril Beck, Wilmer Larry, and Walter Allen. Each boy will also plant late 1 peck of Petoskey's potatoes, a certain kind. This is thought to be a kind which will never run out. And then it says, last year, Merlin Larry, Darwin, and Darrell Reisling had some of the leading plots.
Awesome.
That caught my eye because it was agricultural.
Awesome. Thank you. They're just wonderful tidbits of history that I'm sure you won't find anywhere else. So please check out the Maquoketans. They really are wonderful. Anybody else? All right. Thank you so much. Oh, Roger.
There must be a lot of yearbooks around.
There are.
Do you have them?
We have, so just for those of you who don't know, back in this corner of the library on the other side, we have what we call a collections room. And we have most of the Exoduses, we have some sirens, we have some talks, we have yearbooks that from Andrew and Preston and wherever we can get them. So if you have yearbooks, please, that you don't want anymore, can't keep anymore, please bring them to us and see if we need that copy, because we're trying to complete our collection. And those will also end up, right, Eric, those will also be online at one time. And yeah, so if we don't have them, we can't put them up there. So please don't ever throw away anything like that, because if we already have one, and I think we try to keep 2 of each just in case, but if we don't ever have it, and then we sell them to, you know, people who come through to make money to pay the light bills, you know, any extras that we have. So they're always in demand. People come through from all over the country and look for yearbooks because either they don't have theirs or they're looking for their mothers or, you know, something. So they're just popular. Linda?
Ralph's mom taught in middle school.
She taught me
Most of us know that, yeah.
algebra. She was a wonderful algebra teacher. Yes, she was.
She was a very smart lady.
That's right. And Nadine, are you still here? Nadine's mother-in-law, Mrs. Lovin, taught 6th grade at 4th Ward. But there was a time, if you remember, in Maquoketa schools where there were not, there's Nadine, where there were not enough classrooms. And so they farmed out. So I was in 6th grade at the time. I went to 6th grade over the top of City Hall, that very same room that my dad heard about my car. That I went to, I had English there, and Mrs. Lovin taught my English class. And Miss Gibson, I think, was in the other half with another 6th grade class. So there were times where we didn't have enough classrooms.
And that's where Rose Franson has her art.
Yes, thank you, it is. So, just a lot of interesting things, but I think if you are from this area and familiar with, and these are Maquoketa ones that we're talking about right now, but fascinating little tidbits of information, and you'll think, I never knew my mother did that, or there's my grandmother, or my aunt so-and-so. So they're just very interesting, so.
What was your maiden name?
Wells, yeah. And I saw a picture in there of Sandra Cassidy, too. Sandra Cassidy. Yes. I should have put it up there. But anyway, they're wonderful, so please take a look. Come in and look at them in the meantime. But one day the plan is to have them up there for everybody to see. So anyway, thank you very much.